Hi, I'm Glen Robson from the National Library of Wales, and I'm going to be talking about search, annotation, and authentication. So I'm going to talk about creating annotations. Most people create annotations at the moment through Mirador, and you've seen some examples of that in the earlier presentations. Then I'm going to talk about the different use cases for annotations. So annotations for research, for teaching, annotations created by machines, and also for crowdsourcing annotations. And then I'm going to talk about the Search API, which is an API to allow you to discover these annotations once you've created them. They can also be for searching OCR, and I'll give an example of that. And then going to have a quick look at the Authentication API, which you've heard a bit about this morning, and giving you some examples of people that are using them. So to start with annotations, it's slightly separate to the IIIF standard, and currently uses a standard called Open Annotations, but the next version of IIIF will use the W3C Web Annotations, which was released recently. And the way most people interact with annotations is through Mirador. And you can see I've opened up the annotation toolbar at the top, and it gives you lots of options about creating squares or circles, lines, points, and this example here is kind of a free-formed way of creating annotations. And I've drawn around the head of the statue, and then a box has appeared allowing me to add an annotation. You can also add a tag, you can add links, videos, images to annotations. But the kind of most classic use case of annotations is to do with transcribing manuscripts, but I'll give you examples of other ones. So this is an example from Jeff Witt from lombardpress.org, and the primary focus of Lombard Press and Scata is to facilitate the publication, dissemination and study of sentences commentaries. Various manuscripts from different institutions have been brought together and connected to TEI transcriptions and made available to be viewed and searched in Mirador. Jeff is also working on how to send these transcriptions and table of contents back to the institutions that host the digital images to enhance their collections. So you saw examples of bringing all these different manuscripts together in Mirador, and the annotations allow you to annotate other people's content through Mirador. Another example of annotations is for teaching, and this is using the edX platform for remote learning. This particular one is a course run by HarvardX on the history of China. And one of the examples of the one of the course work is to look at a scroll hosted by Harvard University. And it's a very detailed, high-quality scroll, and they've got a list of tasks that you need to do for the assignment. So, example, you've got to tag four farmers, and you've got to detail about how you know they're farmers and what each farmer is doing. And this is what it looks like. You can see it's absolutely massive. And if you zoom into the scroll, you'll see annotations like this. So this is an annotation created by one of the students on the course, and they've identified that this person is probably an official being transported, and they've detailed why they think it's an official, because he's being assisted in his clothing. There are other types of annotations. There's an annotation like this one, which is created by the staff on the course, and they've identified 3 fishing boats, and they're drawing attention to the flute player at the back. So those annotations have all been curated and created by hand, and quite detailed annotations, but there's also ways to create annotations using machines. So this is an example from Digerati where they've OCR'd a book, so they've run the images through an OCR processing, and they've also done named entity recognition to pick out the names of people, places, organizations within the text. And you can see in Mirador, if you put your mouse over the box, you can see the text which has been picked up and translated, and then the organization, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which has been identified as an organization. This is another example from McGill University, and they're looking at creating OCR functionality to be able to pick out notes from music. And this is one of the National Library of Wales manuscripts that they're using, but they're using other different manuscripts from different places. So to be able to give access to these annotations, there's something called the IIIF Search API. And this is, as mentioned earlier, it's a bit like a PDF search within. So it's allowed you to search within the content of the images. It's not for searching metadata, it's only for searching annotations within the images. And to give you an example here from North Carolina State University, this is one of their newspapers which they sent to OCR, and so they've got text of the content. And this is being showed through the Universal Viewer, which is one of the IIIF viewers. And you can see at the bottom there's a box, a search within box. And if you start typing in there, they've implemented the kind of suggesting service. So when you start typing, it gives you different examples of what you want to search. And if you select Carolina, it'll zoom in onto the image then, and you'll be able to see the text highlighted. The other way to create annotations, and this is something we're particularly interested in National Library of Wales, is through crowdsourcing. We've got a number of projects looking at how we can create crowdsourcing annotations of our content and other people's content. So we already started with using Mirador, and we developed a simple annotation server, which is the kind of the back end which stores all the annotations. There are other annotation servers available, but the one we use is this one, and it's available on GitHub if you want to use it. So we're using it to inscribe the Welsh World War I Book of Remembrance. And this is a book which contains a list of every Welsh soldier who died in World War I, and any soldier who fought with the Welsh regiments. And we're working with volunteers around Wales to transcribe the content. And we're asking them to use Mirador and to drag a box, type what they see, and then kind of type the different fields so that we've got the data about people, where they're from, if they served on ship, and which regiments they were from. And they've been working on this for about a year, and I think this is slightly out of date. They've done about 32,000 boxes, so they've already done about 32,000 names in the book. It's really difficult with crowdsourcing to know how close you are to finishing, and so we've created some graphs to help them monitor progress. And the top one is the annotations per page, and this shows the amount of pages which have at least one annotation. So you can see they're about 88% through, but this isn't really reflective because you could put one annotation in each page and get to 100%. So we've done this second graph at the bottom, which shows you the annotations per page, which gives a better reflection about how close they are to finishing. And you can see in the different sections of the book, there's different amounts of names, and there's a big gap in the middle, which they're working on at the moment. The data they're creating is incredibly useful, and we hope to release it to researchers that are interested in this area to be able to process as annotations. Just looking at the places mentioned in the book, I've mapped them on a map, and you can see the vast majority, they're kind of the highlighted in South Wales, and this is kind of maps where the population centre of Wales is around the south. And then also you can follow around the coast, and that also maps kind of where the population centres are in Wales. There's lots of mentions of people from London, Manchester, Dublin, and some from the northeast of England as well. So it's turning the data which was kind of inside the book and being able to reuse it as annotations, and then be able to map and look at it in different ways. So I've got a video showing this end to end. So this is using Mirador, and you saw from Rashmi's presentation the table of contents. So this is a large book of 1,000 pages, and we've got a table of contents which splits it into regiment. So I've selected the regiment, I've chosen the image, and you can zoom in, you can see there's an annotation here, and if you hover over it, you can see what somebody's transcribed. So this is, and then you click the transcribe button, you draw a box, and then you start typing what you see. And it's at this point that I realized this was a bad example to show, and I've just gone for A as lieutenant there, and his name is Thomas Brown, and he's from St Helens. So I've typed what I can see, I then highlight, and I click rank to say it's a rank. I highlight the name, click name to say it's a name, and then I click the place and say it's a place, and then I click save. And then you can highlight just to make sure that the annotation is saved. And then if you switch over to the universal view, and this is our kind of our public view of the content, and if you go down to the search bar, and type the name in and click search, it'll then show you the instances of Thomas Brown, which is in the different pages of the book. And the one we want is the second one. And if you click that, and then it'll zoom in, and it'll show it the Thomas Brown from St Helens. And this is live at the moment, so the volunteers are transcribing, and as soon as they're transcribing, it's available for searching by the public. So they're about 80% through. For other projects, we don't allow searching until they've transcribed quite a large proportion of the content, but for this one, where they've almost finished, we do allow searching of the whole content. So another project we looked at for crowdsourcing was with Clocan, and this is to do with mapping. So we digitised another about 1,000 tithe maps, which cover the entirety of Wales in the 1800s. And Clocan built a georeferencing system, so the image on the left-hand side is from the National Library of Wales server delivered over IIIF, and the image on the right-hand side is the modern map. And the idea is that you click a point on the old map and click on a point on the new map, and it warps and stretches the old map so it's overlaid and so it matches. And they also built a transcription platform for transcribing related apportionment records. So these are records about who owned the field, how much rent they paid, how much tithe they paid to the local church. And you can transcribe this through the interface. And this is closing relatively soon, I think in the next month, if not a bit sooner. So we're developing an interface to be able to show the data. Now it's getting near the end. And we're delivering this again through the Search API. So even though these annotations have been created on a different system, we're indexing them and we're able to show them through the universal viewer using the Search API. So that's where we were until about January. And then we were really looking at all these different crowdsourcing projects, and we really wanted a more generic solution that could handle different content types. Something that was open source that we could make available to the community and hopefully build something on top of. So we went out to tender, and Digerati are the company that was successful. And we had a strong response from the community, lots of interested organisations looking at creating a system for us. And the idea is that you choose a IIIF collection, either your own collection or somebody else's collection. You set up the site in Omeka S. You configure your capture model, and this is the model which allows you, which you choose what data you're going to collect about the content. And then you launch the website, and then users can authenticate using Twitter, Facebook, Google, or Shibboleth, which is the authentication we use in the library. And they can start annotating and capturing data about the collections. So this is the first collection we're working with. It's called the Gwilliam Livingston Evans collection. This is a photograph collection from North Wales. It's a relatively modern collection, I think starting, I can't remember the date, but relatively recent. And it came on block to the library, and we haven't got any catalogue records, and there's thousands of images. And so hoping the crowd can create data about who's in the photographs, where they were taken. We do have some notes about the collection, about the date the photograph was taken. And we're hoping to capture all of that. So if you go and drill down to one of the images, this is an image from a carnival in Trosfynydd. And you see one of the images, and you can choose whether you want to tag a person in the photo, or if you want to tag something about the photo itself, so its location or its date, or you want to add a personal memory. We're working with volunteers in Blaenau Ffestiniog, and this is where a lot of this collection was photographed. And as it's relatively modern, we're hoping the volunteers will know some of the people in the photograph, or may even be in the photographs themselves. So in this case, I've chosen to tag a person. I've dragged a box on this person's head, and I've clicked Save. And I've given him a name and a date of birth, occupation, and personal description. So the way the system's designed, you can customize this information. So for other projects, we might want to capture different information. For this particular project, because it's so recent, I think we're going to get rid of the date of birth, because it's quite possible that some of these people might be alive. But we might want to capture other information. We've also got a bit at the bottom about personal memories, if you did remember these people. So the second collection, we're working with 3 collections, and the second collection is to do with the World War I tribunal records. So during the First World War, you were able to apply for exemption from conscription. And we were one of the few places in the National Library which has a copy of these records. And there were various reasons how you could apply for exemption. And we want to transcribe these records and try and capture the information that's contained within it. So the idea at the moment is that you'd view one of these pages, you'd decide what type of page it is. We've only got 2 examples here, but I think eventually we're going to have 5 different types of pages. So this is an application, and it's the first page of the application, so I'm going to click that one. And this will drop boxes on top of the image. One of the problems we had with the Book of Remembrance transcription is there were a lot of box drawing, and some of the volunteers that we were working with were struggling with the kind of coordination of being able to drop the box and drag it to create the box. So we tried to spend a lot of time trying to make that process a bit easier. And in this example, the forms are quite predictable in their location, and so we're hoping we can just drop the boxes on, and there'll have to be minor adjustments for different images. But then they'll be able to transcribe the contents into the boxes on the right-hand side. So the information we hope to collect, so there's things like name, age, address, occupation, name of the employer, and then very at the bottom you can just about see the grounds which you're making your application for exemption. And this can be things like for protected occupations or for other reasons. And then the final collection we're looking at is it's called the Thomas Pennant Tour of Wales. And this is a book from the 1700s which was, describes a trip around Wales with lots of very detailed illustrations. And the type is good enough to OCR, so we've sent it through OCR. And we've also done name entity recognition. You can see it's picked out this Robert person from the text. But it's not perfect, and so we're looking to see if we can get volunteers to correct the OCR and also to georeference the images which are inside the book, because a lot of them are pictures of castles and places throughout Wales. So that's annotation. I'm going to move on to authentication. So there are four main uses of authentication. The first one is login. So this is if you want to provide username and password access to images. The second one is click-through, and this is where the terms and conditions are shown to the user, and the user has to agree to them before they can see the content. The third one is kiosk, and this is where the user doesn't do the authentication, but the client you're using does the authentication on your behalf. So this could be a protected, enhanced kiosk in your university. And then external, where the authentication happens in an external system, and the client handles the authentication to check you're authenticated, but doesn't do the authentication itself. On all these different use cases allow degraded access. So you could allow either a watermarked version or a low-quality version to the public, and then once you log in, you'll be able to get the high-quality version. To give you an example, this is an example from the Wellcome Trust, and they protect some of their material, specifically their clinical material, to logged-in users and members of the Wellcome Trust. And this is an example where I've tried to look at this manifest through the universal viewer, and it's popped up a box explaining that I can't access it unless I log in. And there's a login box at the bottom, and you can click that and add your username and password. This example is called a click-through, and this is where, for modern archival material in the Wellcome Trust, you have to agree to the terms and conditions before you're allowed to access the content. So for this example, you have to agree that you're not going to use the material in bad ways and accept the terms and conditions. And once you click the accept terms and conditions, you're then free to access the images. There are a few other implementations in development, particularly in the British Library. They're looking at protecting copyright material. They might provide remote staff access, but for the public, they're looking at creating single user access, and that's within the building. The Getty are also looking at authentication, so possibly providing staff access to off-site to private material, but on-site access to copyright material. And Tom from Digerati have created a kind of auth playground, which gives you a kind of a sample of the different authentication flavors and how they work. So in summary, I hope I've showed you there's a variety of annotation use cases, including in teaching, research, automated, OCR, and others. And also there's a lot of stuff you can do with crowdsourcing. There's a link there to the annotation model. This is to the web annotation standard W3C. And then IIIF Search allows you to search these annotations, and there's a link there to the Search API. Both the annotations created from crowdsourcing or through OCR on other methods. And then there's a IIIF Authentication protocol, which allows you to protect your resources if you need to, by protecting it by username and password or through agreeing to terms and conditions. So, great. Thank you.